In a fortress of glass and code where tech titans forge empires with algorithms, a catastrophic cyberattack freezes a corporate giant, and the only hope lies in a 10-year-old girl, invisible in her oversized hoodie, wielding a notebook of genius. As screens die and panic erupts, she sees a hidden truth in the chaos, unraveling a vendetta that could topple an empire. How can a child outwit a vengeful hacker's trap? Dive into this heart-pounding saga of unseen brilliance. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories that spark wonder. Let's dive in. In the heart of Seattle's tech corridor, where glass towers slice through the morning mist, NexGen Solutions stood as a gleaming fortress of innovation, its marble lobby alive with the staccato rhythm of ambition, sharp clicks of polished heels, the low hum of encrypted deals whispered over sleek phones, and the soft glow of screens flashing algorithms that could shift markets. A 10-year-old girl, Sophie Miller, sat tucked into a cushioned bench in the corner, her small frame nearly lost in an oversized green hoodie, its frayed cuffs a testament to nights spent twisting wires and soldering circuits in her cramped apartment. Her patched backpack rested beside her, guarding a worn notebook filled with intricate sketches of circuit boards and handwritten code, each page a map of her self-taught genius, pieced together from scavenged YouTube tutorials and discarded tech manuals dog-eared from thrift store bins. Her mother, Laura Miller, 34, moved through the lobby with the practice and visibility of a janitor, her cleaning cart gliding silently across the polished floor, her hands rough from years of labor to keep them afloat. Sophie counted the tiles, 47 from her bench to the elevator, a ritual that steadied her as her pencil danced across her notebook, sketching a device that could sync signals without cables, an idea born from a late-night video on signal modulation she'd watched on a library computer, its screen flickering but alive. Laura had taught her to stay unseen, to blend into the shadows of a world that didn't notice them. But Sophie's mind was a riot of patterns and possibilities, a universe where broken things whispered secrets only she could hear. She glanced at Laura, who was wiping a glass panel with deliberate care, as if each stroke could erase the weight of double shifts and medical bills. Sophie's heart ached. She knew her mother's dreams had been buried under survival, a sacrifice that fueled Sophie's own relentless curiosity. She remembered the night she'd fixed a neighbor's radio, its static giving way to music under her careful hands, her mother's tired smile brighter than any reward. "Stay right here, Sophie," Laura whispered as she passed, her voice soft but firm, her eyes scanning the lobby for anyone who might question her daughter's presence. "Okay, Mom," Sophie replied, her tone steady, her pencil never pausing. The security guard, a grizzled man named Carl, glanced at Laura, his voice gruff. "Same old grind, Miller?" he asked, his eyes sliding past Sophie as if she were part of the decor. "Always," Laura answered, her smile tight, her hands gripping the cart's handle like a lifeline. Sophie didn't mind being ignored. It was her cloak, letting her observe the executives in their tailored suits, their voices sharp with urgency, unaware of the girl who saw their world as a puzzle to be solved. Her notebook held dreams bigger than this lobby, ideas for devices that could connect the disconnected, inspired by the time she'd rewired a discarded speaker to surprise her mother with music on her birthday. As she sketched, the lobby's rhythm shattered. Screens flickered, then went black, plunging the space into a digital void. A collective gasp echoed, followed by a buzz of panic as phones lit up with notifications. Sophie's pencil froze, her ears catching a single word, breach, hissed like a venomous curse by a woman in a crisp blazer. Voices rose, sharp and frantic. "The servers are down," an executive shouted, slamming a tablet onto the reception desk. "Today's the merger pitch." Sophie's gaze darted to a young man in a slightly oversized vest. Ethan Brooks, 22, a junior IT intern, his face pale as he muttered into his phone, "No, I don't know why the system's offline. We're dead." Her pulse quickened, not with fear, but with a spark of recognition. She'd seen this before, not in real life, but in a simulation she'd hacked into on a coding forum, its virtual walls crumbling under a similar attack. Her fingers tightened around her notebook, where she'd jotted notes about signal overflows from a manual she'd found in a dumpster. She whispered to herself, "It's a loop trap, not random." Ethan, pacing nearby, caught her words, his head snapping toward her. "What was that, kid?" he asked, his voice sharp but tinged with curiosity, not dismissal. Sophie froze, her mother's rule echoing, "Don't speak, don't be seen." But the puzzle was louder, its pieces clicking in her mind like a lock waiting to be opened. "The signal overflow," she said, louder, her voice steady despite the heat rising in her cheeks. "It's trapping the system in a loop." Ethan blinked, stepping closer, his phone forgotten. "How do you even know that?" he asked, his dark eyes searching hers. Sophie hesitated, her fingers curling around her notebook's edge. I saw it once, in a place where people share broken things." The lobby's chaos swirled around them, but for a moment it was just Sophia Ethan, a girl with a secret and an intern who dared to listen. Above them the screen stayed dark, NexGen's empire teetering on the brink of collapse. Could a girl no one noticed hold the key to saving it all? And what would happen when Daniel Foster, the steely CEO, watching from the shadows, realized a child's mind might outshine his own? The answer lies ahead. A story of brilliance breaking through silence, waiting to unfold. The command center of NexGen Solutions thrummed with a frenetic pulse, its glass walls reflecting the jittery glow of monitors spitting error codes and the strained faces of engineers battling a digital storm. The air was heavy with the sharp scent of overheated electronics and the undercurrent of fear, as if the room itself sensed the company's empire teetering. The girl stood near the edge of the chaos, her notebook clutched tightly, its pages a private universe of logic where she'd once mapped out a way to boost a neighbor's Wi-Fi signal using a salvaged router. Her mother was still on the upper floors, lost in her routine, unaware of the crisis unfolding below. The girl's eyes darted across the screens, catching fragments of jargon, malware signature, encrypted backdoor, and weaving them into a pattern that felt less like an attack and more like a deliberate riddle, a chessboard where every move was calculated to provoke. She'd spent nights puzzling over code on a cracked tablet, its battery held together by tape, teaching herself to think like a system, to find its weak points. This breach was no accident. It was a performance, a challenge etched in lines of code that whispered, "Find me if you can." The intern, Ethan, paced nearby, his tie now a loose knot, his phone buzzing with urgent messages from his supervisor. He muttered under his breath, "They're saying it's a custom exploit, no known signature." The girl's pencil twitched in her hand, tracing a jagged line in her notebook that mirrored the system's fractured state. She spoke softly, almost to herself, "It's not custom. It's layered, like a trap within a trap." Ethan's head snapped toward her, his eyes narrowing. "Layered? What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice a mix of exhaustion and intrigue, stepping closer to her bench. She hesitated, her mother's warning to stay silent echoing, but the riddle's pull was stronger. "The code," she said, her voice clearer now. "It's hiding behind a decoy. The malware you see is just noise. The real attack is in the routing table." A nearby engineer, his shirt sleeves rolled up, scoffed loudly. "Routing table? Kid, this is a corporate network, not your school's Wi-Fi." He snapped, but his tone faltered when he saw Ethan's expression shift, curiosity overtaking doubt. The girl pointed to a screen displaying a log of network traffic, her finger steady despite the room's tension. She said, "Look at the packet redirects. They're looping through an old protocol, one nobody uses anymore. It's like a secret door left unlocked." The engineer with rolled sleeves leaned closer, his skepticism wavering. "An old protocol?" he asked, his voice less sharp now. "We phased those out years ago." She nodded, her eyes still on the screen. "Not completely. There's always a shadow in the system, something forgotten. Someone knew it was there." Ethan crouched beside her, his voice low. "You're saying this is intentional, like they wanted us to find it?" She met his gaze, her own eyes fierce with focus. "No," she said, They wanted someone to understand it. The room's noise seemed to fade, the weight of her words settling over the small group now gathering around her. A woman in a navy blazer, her badge reading Lead Systems Analyst, pushed through the crowd, her tablet glowing with diagnostic charts. "Show me where," she demanded, her tone clipped but curious, setting her tablet beside the girl's notebook. The girl didn't flinch, pointing to a specific line in the log where data packets were being rerouted to a dead-end server. "Here," she said. "It's funneling everything into a null address, but it's not random. It's a pattern, like a lock with a hidden key." The analyst's eyes widened, her fingers tapping her tablet to pull up the same log. "How did you even spot that?" she asked, her voice softer, almost reverent. The girl shrugged, her fingers brushing the notebook's edge. "I fixed a printer once. It was doing the same thing, sending jobs nowhere. I found the glitch in its routing." The analyst blinked, then nodded, typing rapidly to test the girl's theory. The screen flickered, a small section of the network responding for the first time in hours, but the core system remained locked. Ethan leaned closer, his voice urgent. "You're onto something, but why is it still fighting us?" he asked, his eyes scanning the screen. The girl's brow furrowed, her mind racing through memories of late-night experiments, like the time she'd rerouted a neighbor's security camera to catch a stray cat stealing from their porch. "It's because it's not just one attack," she said, her voice steady but heavy with realization. "It's a chain. Break one link and another locks tighter." The analyst paused her typing, her head tilting. "A chain?" she asked. "You mean it's adaptive?" The girl nodded, her heart pounding as she saw the truth unfold. This wasn't just a hack, it was a story, a vendetta coded with purpose, as if the hacker were reaching out, not to destroy, but to demand recognition. Her fingers tightened around her pencil, a chill running through her. Whoever built this knew NexGen secrets better than its own team, and they were waiting for someone to answer their call. She whispered, almost to herself, "It's like they're daring us to keep up." The room's tension spiked, the engineers exchanging uneasy glances, sensing the battle was no longer just against code, but against a mind that burned with intent.
The command center of NexGen Solutions pulsed with a frenetic energy, its glass walls reflecting the chaotic flicker of screens, spitting out error codes like a wounded animal's cries. The air was thick with the acrid scent of overheated circuits and the weight of unspoken panic, as if the room itself knew the company's survival hung by a thread. The girl stood at the terminal, her small frame dwarfed by the towering monitors, her eyes locked on the labyrinth of corrupted data that seemed to taunt her with every flicker. Her notebook lay open beside her, its pages a chaotic tapestry of diagrams and scribbled notes, a map of her mind's relentless pursuit of order. The engineers around her, their faces etched with exhaustion, watched with a mix of grudging respect and lingering doubt, their earlier dismissals now crumbling under the weight of her uncanny insight. The intern, Ethan, stood close, his hands fidgeting, his eyes darting between the girl and the screens, as if he could will her to unravel the mystery faster. The breach wasn't just a technical assault, it was a deliberate provocation, a digital gauntlet thrown by someone who knew the system's secrets and wielded them like a blade. She felt it in her bones. This was a duel, and she was being tested. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, pulling up a hidden log buried deep in the system's underbelly, a shadow realm of forgotten commands. The screen revealed a cryptic string of code, deceptively simple, yet pulsing with intent, like a riddle carved in stone. She recognized its structure, not from any textbook, but from nights spent dissecting an old modem she'd found in a junk shop, its firmware a puzzle she'd solved by flashlight. "It's a recursive trap," she said, her voice low but cutting through the room's hum. The lead analyst, her navy blazer now wrinkled, leaned closer, her tablet forgotten. "Recursive? You mean it's self-reinforcing?" she asked, her tone sharp but tinged with curiosity. The girl nodded, her eyes never leaving the screen. "It's feeding on its own errors, getting stronger every time you try to break it, like a maze that rebuilds its walls." Ethan crouched beside her, his hands fidgeting, his eyes darting between the girl and the screens, as if he could will her to unravel the mystery faster. The breach wasn't just a technical assault. It was a deliberate provocation, a digital gauntlet thrown by someone who knew the system's secrets and wielded them like a blade. She felt it in her bones. This was a duel, and she was being tested. The room's tension spiked as a new alert flashed across the main screen, a secondary breach targeting the company's core data vault, where client contracts and proprietary algorithms were stored. A collective gasp rippled through the engineers. "That's how intellectual property," a senior tech with Sweat Street glasses barked, his voice cracking. "If that goes, we're finished." The girl's heart raced, but her hand stayed steady, her mind slicing through the chaos. She saw it now. The attack wasn't just about disruption. It was about exposing NexGen's heart, laying bare its vulnerabilities for the world to see.
Her thoughts flashed to a moment when she'd fixed a neighbor's security camera, its feed hacked to loop an empty street, a trick she'd undone by tracing the signal source. This felt the same, but darker, more personal. She typed faster, isolating the new breach, but then a plot twist stopped her cold. A hidden signature flickered in the code, a single phrase buried in a comment line, "For the unseen." Her breath caught. It wasn't just a marker, it was a confession, a cry from someone who'd been erased, just as she often felt in the shadows of this towering world. "Who left that?" Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible, his eyes fixed on the signature. She shook her head, her throat tight. "Someone who used to belong here," she said, her voice heavy with realization. "Someone who's angry." The analyst's eyes widened, her fingers pausing on her tablet. "A disgruntled employee?" she asked, her tone now more respectful than skeptical. The girl nodded, her mind racing. "They know the system better than anyone," she said. "They built this to hurt, but also to be found." A senior engineer, his tie loosened, stepped forward, his voice gruff but shaken. "You're saying this is revenge?" he asked, his eyes darting to the screen. She met his gaze, unflinching. "It's more than that," she said. "It's a challenge. They want someone to answer." The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in, the engineers exchanging uneasy glances as the screens continued their relentless warnings. Her fingers hesitated, the signature's words echoing in her mind. She'd felt that invisibility, that need to prove herself in a world that overlooked her. This hacker wasn't just breaking a system. They were screaming for recognition, their pain woven into every line of code. She typed a new command, probing deeper, and uncovered a buried file labeled Nightfall Directive. It wasn't part of NexGen's architecture. It was a custom script, a digital time bomb set to wipe the system clean if anyone got too close. Her pulse quickened. This was the hacker's endgame, a final act of defiance. "What's that?" Ethan asked, his voice urgent, leaning closer to the screen. She shook her head, her throat tight. "It's a kill switch. If I touch it wrong, it'll erase everything." The analyst stepped back, her voice sharp. "Then don't! We'll get experts." But the girl shook her head, her resolve hardening. "They know the system better than anyone," she said. "They built this to hurt, but also to be found." A countdown flashed on the screen. 8 minutes until total data loss. The room erupted in panic, voices overlapping, but she stayed focused, her mind racing. She wasn't just fighting code now, she was facing a shadow that mirrored her own, daring her to prove she could rise where they had fallen. The command center of NexGen Solutions was a pressure cooker, the air thick with the metallic tang of overheating servers and the electric hum of desperation. The girl stood at the terminal, her small hands poised over the keyboard, the Nightfall Directive's countdown clock glaring down from the main screen. 7 minutes until it would obliterate the company's digital core. The screens pulsed with green and red, a battleground of code where every keystroke was a gamble against annihilation. The engineers around her, their faces pale and drawn, watched in tense silence, their earlier doubts now buried under the weight of her audacity. The intern, Ethan, hovered at her side, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of a table, his eyes flicking between her and the ticking clock. The breach wasn't just a technical trap. It was a personal gauntlet, a coded vendetta from someone who'd once walked these halls, their bitterness, now a digital noose tightening around NexGen's future. She felt the hacker's presence in every line, a shadow that mirrored her own unseen struggles, daring her to respond not with force, but with understanding. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, weaving through the Nightfall directive's layers, each one a new puzzle designed to outwit the unwary. She saw its structure, not as a programmer might, but as a tinkerer who'd once revived a discarded drone by rewiring its flight controls under a flickering kitchen light. The code was a living thing, breathing with intent, and she was learning its language. "It's rewriting itself," she said, her voice steady despite the room's chaos, her eyes locked on a shifting encryption key. The lead analyst, her navy blazer now discarded, leaned in, her voice taut. "Rewriting? You mean it's adaptive in real time?" The girl nodded, her fingers never pausing. "It's like a game of chess," she said. "Every move we make, it counters, but it's leaving openings, like it wants us to find them." Ethan's voice cracked with urgency. "Openings? For what?" he asked, his eyes wide. She glanced at him, her expression fierce. "To talk back," she said. "It's not just a trap. It's a conversation." The door to the command center slammed open, and Daniel Foster, the CEO, strode in, his presence chilling the room like a winter gust. At 47, his sharp gray suit and steely gaze commanded fear, a man who'd clawed his way from foster care to build an empire, only to be haunted by the sister he'd lost to the system's neglect. His eyes locked onto the girl, a flicker of unease crossing his face. She was an echo of someone he'd failed to save. "Who let her touch the system?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous, cutting through the room's hum. The senior engineer, his glasses fogged, stammered, She's getting results, sir." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Results? She's a liability. Clear her out." Ethan stepped forward, his voice shaking but resolute. "She's not, sir. She's talking to the hacker. Look." He pointed to the screen, where the countdown paused at 6 minutes, and a new prompt flickered. "You see the game. Play it." The girl's heart pounded, but she didn't flinch, her fingers typing a bold response into the system. "I'm playing. What's your move?" The room gasped as the screen blinked, a reply appearing. "Prove you're worth it. Solve my puzzle." The analyst's voice trembled. "She's engaging them directly," she whispered, her tablet slipping in her hands. The girl's mind raced, the hacker's words striking a chord. She knew what it felt like to be unseen, to prove herself to a world that didn't care. This wasn't just about saving NexGen. It was about answering a cry for recognition. She typed again, her message deliberate. "You don't have to destroy to be heard. Show me who you are." The screen froze, then flashed a name. Elena Kane. Ethan sucked in a breath. Kane? She was a lead developer here, fired for challenging Foster's cost-cutting last year. Daniel's face darkened, a shadow of guilt flickering. He dismissed Elena's warnings, her passion for ethical innovation clashing with his bottom-line focus. The girl didn't know Elena's story, but she felt her pain in the code, a wound turned into a weapon. She typed faster, weaving a counterscript to redirect the Nightfall directive's destructive energy, turning its own logic against it. The countdown ticked to 5 minutes, the room's silence deafening. Daniel stepped closer, his voice softer, almost haunted. "What are you doing, kid?" he asked, his eyes fixed on her hands, which moved with a precision that stirred memories of his sister's nimble fingers, fixing broken clocks. "I'm giving her a choice," the girl said, her voice firm. "She wants to be seen, not to end everything." Ethan leaned in, his voice urgent. "Can you do it before it wipes us out?" he asked, glancing at the clock. She nodded, her resolve unshaken. "I have to," she said, her words a vow. The screen flashed again, Elena's response stark. "You're not like them. Don't let them forget you." The girl's throat tightened, but she pressed on, her code a bridge to a mind that had chosen destruction over silence. The system flickered, green creeping into the red warnings, a sign she was close, but one wrong move could still end it all. The room held its breath, the girl's fingers the only sound, each keystroke a step towards salvation or ruin. The command center, NexGen Solutions, exhaled a collective sigh. The screens now bathed in a steady green glow. The Nightfall directive's countdown halted at 4 minutes, its threat neutralized like a storm that had passed. The girl stepped back from the terminal, her small hands trembling not from exhaustion, but from the weight of bridging a gap between vengeance and redemption. The engineers, their faces a mix of awe and disbelief, stood frozen, their earlier skepticism replaced by a quiet reverence for the child who'd turned chaos into order. The intern, Ethan, ran a hand through his disheveled hair, his eyes wide as he stared at the restored system, the data vault's integrity intact. The hacker's final message lingered on the screen. "You saw me. That's enough." The girl felt a pang. Elena Kane hadn't just wanted to destroy, she'd wanted to be acknowledged, her pain etched in code, now answered by a child's empathy. The room's silence was broken only by the soft hum of cooling fans, a stark contrast to the panic that had ruled moments before. She clutched her notebook, its pages a testament to her relentless drive to understand, to fix, to connect what others overlooked. The CEO, Daniel Foster, stood at the room's edge, his sharp gray suit a facade for the turmoil within. At 47, he'd built NexGen from the ashes of a fractured childhood, but the girl's actions stirred memories of his foster sister, whose dreams he'd failed to protect. He cleared his throat, his voice low but resonant. "You didn't just save the system," he said, stepping forward, his polished shoes clicking against the tile. "You changed the rules." The girl looked up, her eyes cautious but steady, her notebook a shield against the weight of his gaze. "I just followed the code," she said, her voice soft but unyielding. "Someone had to listen." Ethan, emboldened, grinned despite the tension. "Listen? You practically rewrote the story," he said, his voice warm with admiration. She shifted uncomfortably, unused to praise, her mind still tangled in Elena's words, wondering if the hacker was out there, watching, hoping. The lead analyst, her navy blazer now slung over a chair, approached, her expression softened. "We need to understand your process, not just the fix, the way you saw her intent." The girl hesitated, her fingers tracing a circuit sketch in her notebook, a relic of nights spent rebuilding a discarded smartwatch to surprise her mother. "It's not about the process," she said, her voice gaining strength. "It's about the why behind it." She was screaming through the code, and I answered. Daniel's eyes flickered, a shadow of personal reckoning crossing his face. "Screaming?" he asked, his voice quieter, as if her words had unearthed something buried. "For what?" She met his gaze, unflinching. "For someone to care, for someone to see her before she burned it all down." The moment hung heavy, the room's air charged with unspoken truths. Daniel turned away, his jaw tight, and faced the glass wall, the city's lights twinkling below like a constellation of possibilities. He saw his reflection, not the CEO, but the boy who'd once fixed broken radios to feel whole, only to lose the one person who believed in him. He turned back, his decision clear. "You belong here," he said, his voice firm but warm. "Not as a visitor, as a mind we need." Ethan's jaw dropped, and he glanced at the girl, his voice eager. "You hear that? They want you in the game." She blinked, her fingers tightening around her notebook. "What would I do?" she asked, her tone wary, testing the offer's edges. Daniel stepped closer, his eyes locking onto hers. "Learn, create, break things if you have to. We need people who see what others miss." Her mother appeared at the door, summoned by a frantic call, her cleaning smock dusted with lints, her face etched with worry. She froze, seeing her daughter at the heart of the room, surrounded by adults who looked at her with respect. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling, her hands clutching her cart. The analyst stepped forward, her voice gentle. "Your daughter stopped a catastrophe. She saved us." The mother's eyes glistened, her hand rising to her mouth. She's always fixing things," she whispered, her voice breaking with pride. The girl looked at her mother, a silent bond passing between them, forged in years of shared struggles and quiet victories. She turned back to Daniel, her voice resolute. "If I stay, I want to build something real, for people like us who don't get seen." The mother's tears fell freely, a sob escaping as she nodded, her heart swelling. Daniel nodded, his throat tight. "You will," he said, his voice almost a promise. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a sleek badge, not a guest pass, but a permanent one, its surface catching the light. "This is yours," he said, sliding it across the table. "Whenever you're ready." She picked it up, her fingers tracing the embossed letters, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and possibility. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was undeniable. Ethan grinned, breaking the silence. "You're going to turn this place upside down." And for the first time, she smiled, small but fierce. Daniel turned back to the window, his reflection softer, as if he'd glimpsed the boy he'd once been. Somewhere in the digital ether, Elena's echo lingered, a reminder that brilliance could destroy or heal, depending on who listened. The girl tucked the badge into her pocket, her notebook under her arm, ready to carve a new path, not just for herself, but for every unseen spark waiting to shine.
The story of a young girl saving a tech empire from a vengeful cyber attack reveals a profound truth. Brilliance often blooms in the shadows, unnoticed until it dares to shine. Her journey shows that genius doesn't require a title or recognition. It thrives in curiosity, resilience, and the courage to answer a silent cry for understanding. By seeing the unseen, she not only saved a company, but transformed its heart, proving that even the smallest voice can rewrite a system that overlooks the overlooked. This tale urges us to seek out hidden potential in others and ourselves, fostering a world where every spark matters. Want more stories that ignite your imagination and challenge the status quo? Like, share, and subscribe to our channel to catch the next tale of unsung heroes and bold transformations. Drop a comment below. What unseen brilliance have you noticed in your life? Let's keep the conversation alive and join us for more inspiring stories that remind us to look deeper, dream bigger, and never underestimate the power of a single, determined heart. Stay tuned for what's next.